this is an unusual state in that we didn't start like other states in the Union, starting from the East Coast, going from left to right, from east to west. This area was settled from the south up to the north, first by Spain, and then once Mexico won their independence, then Mexico, the Republic of Mexico, was in charge of it. And the way they dealt with their colonists was to give land grants, and the Spanish gave them to the missions and the presidios, or the forts. And then once Mexico won its independence, they gave their grants to large cattle ranch owners in order to get some people up here. You probably know that where we are right now is a Spanish land grant. And so what I was asked to do was talk about the Spanish land grants. And I've written Spanish and Mexican land grants, not Spanish-Mexican, because some of them were Spanish, some were Mexican. There are some that got started under Spain. They applied while Spain was still in power, and then it became a Mexican land grant. This is the Tumacacori mission. This particular one, I believe, was started in 1801, but Father Kino was here as early as 1701 and set up a mission at this spot. And that was Mexico's way, or Spain's way, of establishing a colony. They called it, historians call it the cross and the sword. They had the soldiers, but they also had the missionary priests. So they granted, as I said, they granted their land to the missions, and this was one of the first land grants to a mission in the area, and this was given by Spain. How big were they? Here we got a list of 20. Tumacacori, 81,000 acres, 46,000. This is what they claimed. Now this is an explanation needed here. When a rancher moved in and he got a land grant, it might be for 17,000 acres, but he was allowed to use the land around him. It's sort of like when you have a ranch and the BLM lets you graze on their land. So what the Spanish called it was the overplus, or the overplus. Spain was an empire. They had a lot of money to build forts, and they were establishing an empire to hopefully return any profits from the new area to the King of Spain. And the missionary work was also to convert the Indians, to make them productive, and the tithes that they gave would go to the King of Spain and to the Pope. Once Mexico won its independence, they, A, didn't have the money to support the military, and B, they were pretty much anti-clerical because the church had been on the side of Spain. So they stopped supporting the missions. They couldn't really afford to support the forts, but in order to get a population here that could hold this territory, and surprisingly, they were worried about the English starting new colonies and even the Russians starting new colonies, because they were doing that up on the northwest coast in Alaska and that sort of thing. So the idea was, let's pay some people to come out here, and not money, but let's give them the land grants so that we can populate the area. And that's the difference between the national Spanish method of colonization and then after 1821, the Mexican Republic's method of colonization. Filed 1826, Francisco Jose de Tuvera, the claim finished by his widow. And that's one thing about Spain, is women could own property. And several women ran these land grant ranches. Either Spanish women or, in this case, Mexican women were allowed to own property, and they ran the ranches. We have, jumping ahead, the Gadsden Purchase enacted June 1854, June 30th, 1854. I still see documents that say 1853. The Tratado de Mesilla, the initial treaty, signed in Mexico December 29th, 1853, That was the preliminary. Then it had to go to the U.S. Senate. And you know what happens when something goes to the U.S. Senate. They changed it completely. They chopped off about $5 million. They chopped the area that we were going to get. Any number of things happened. So the actual Gadsden Purchase was enacted, was finalized in June 1854.